The perfect illusion. The golden hues of the setting sun bathed the city in a warm glow, casting long shadows on the busy streets. Cars honked, pedestrians hurried past, and the city buzzed with an energy that was both chaotic and exhilarating. It was on a night like this, under a sky painted in fiery oranges and deep purples, that I first met Marcus. I hadn't planned to attend the corporate gala that evening. It was one of those high-profile, extravagant events where men in finely tailored suits talked in hushed tones about business deals, and women in dazzling gowns sipped champagne while scanning the room for familiar faces. I was only there because my friend Sarah had convinced me to be her plus one. "Come on, Anna," she had said, practically dragging me into her car. "You need to get out. You spend too much time stuck at your desk, working overtime for a job that barely appreciates you. Let's go have some fun, meet some interesting people, and just enjoy the night." I had reluctantly agreed, not expecting anything remarkable to happen. But then, there was Marcus. He stood out the moment I walked into the grand ballroom. He wasn't just tall, he carried himself with an air of confidence that was almost magnetic. His suit was immaculate, dark blue, sharp, and perfectly tailored to his broad shoulders. His short, dark hair was neatly styled, and his striking blue eyes seemed to scan the room with a quiet authority. People naturally gravitated toward him, but he wasn't the type who demanded attention with arrogance. Instead, it was his effortless charm, the way he smiled, the way he listened when people spoke, that made him stand out. I noticed him before he noticed me, but when our eyes finally met across the room, it was as if the world around us faded into the background. He approached me with a warm, disarming smile. "You look like you don't belong here," he said, his voice smooth and rich with amusement. I raised an eyebrow. "And what makes you say that?" "You're not scanning the room, looking for people to impress," he said, tilting his head slightly. "You're standing by the corner, watching. Observing. That's rare at events like these." I laughed. "Maybe I just enjoy people watching." "Then I suppose I should feel honored that you noticed me," he replied, his smile widening. That was how it began. That night, we talked for hours. I told him about my job at a small marketing firm, about the struggle of trying to break into a competitive industry. He listened intently, nodding at the right moments, asking thoughtful questions. He made me feel like my words mattered, like I was the most interesting person in the room. It was intoxicating. By the end of the night, he had asked for my number. I gave it to him without hesitation. A love story straight out of a fairy tale. The whirlwind romance that followed was nothing short of magical. Marcus was everything I had ever dreamed of in a man. He was successful, intelligent, and ambitious, yet he had a softer side, a way of making me feel safe and valued. He surprised me with flowers at work, took me to expensive restaurants, and planned weekend getaways to places I had only seen in travel magazines. He had wealth, but he wasn't boastful about it. He often spoke about the importance of hard work, of building something meaningful rather than just inheriting riches. "What's the point of money if you don't use it to create something worthwhile?" he once told me as we sat on the rooftop of his penthouse, overlooking the city skyline. "Success isn't about what you have, it's about what you do with it." I believed him. I believed him when he told me he loved me, when he spoke about our future together, about the family we would build. I believed him when he proposed to me on a starlit beach, the waves crashing gently behind us. I believed him even when the cracks started to show. The perfect man with hidden shadows. At first, they were small things, so small I barely noticed them. He would occasionally cancel plans last minute with vague excuses about work. He would grow distant sometimes, his mind preoccupied, his words clipped. But he always came back with grand gestures, a surprise weekend trip, an expensive gift, sweet words whispered in my ear. Then, there were the moments when his charm would slip, revealing something colder underneath. Once, at a charity gala, I had made a harmless joke about how he was always surrounded by admirers. His expression had darkened for just a second before he laughed it off. But that night, in the car, his tone had been different. "You shouldn't say things like that in front of people," he said. I frowned. It was just a joke. He exhaled sharply. "People might take it the wrong way. They might think I encourage that kind of attention." His words had unsettled me, but I brushed it off. After all, he loved me. Didn't he? When I found out I was pregnant, I was terrified. Not because I didn't want the baby, I did. But something inside me whispered that Marcus might not be as thrilled as I hoped. When I told him, he stared at me for a long moment before forcing a smile. "That's unexpected," he said. I tried to read his expression, but his face was unreadable. "You're happy, right?" I asked hesitantly. "Of course," he said. "I just wasn't expecting this so soon." His words stuck with me. So soon. As if there had been a right time, and this wasn't it. Still, he assured me that we would figure it out together. And I believed him. Until the day he left me on the side of the road. The night everything changed. I was 8 months pregnant when Marcus announced he was going on a trip with his parents. "It's just for a few days," he said, packing his suitcase. "It was planned months ago." I hesitated. "Marcus, I'm due any day now. What if something happens while you're gone?" "You'll be fine," he said dismissively. "You have Sarah, you have your doctor. It's just a short trip." I wanted to argue, to make him see how selfish he was being, but something in his expression told me it wouldn't matter. The night he was supposed to leave, I felt the first sharp pain. At first, I ignored it. I had been having Braxton Hicks contractions for weeks. But when the pain intensified, I realized this was different. I clutched my belly, gasping as another contraction hit. "Marcus," I called weakly, my heart pounding. "I think it's happening. The baby." He turned to me, irritation flickering in his eyes. "Now? Are you sure?" A wave of pain surged through me, and I grabbed onto the doorframe for support. "Please," I begged. "We need to go to the hospital." For a moment, he just stood there. Then, with a deep sigh, he grabbed his car keys. "Fine. I'll drop you off on the way." Drop me off. Like I was an errand. A burden. I didn't have the strength to argue. I could barely breathe through the contractions. The ride to the hospital was a blur of pain and disbelief. I clutched my belly, breathing through the agony, while Marcus drove in silence. Then, as we reached a quiet road near the hospital, he slowed the car to a stop. I turned to him in confusion. What are you doing?" He unbuckled his seatbelt. "I told my parents I'd meet them at the airport. You'll be fine from here." And then, before I could react, before I could even process what was happening, he got out. He left. He left me there, on the side of the road, in labor. And what happened next? Left alone, but not defeated. Pain crashed through me in waves, my breath coming in shallow, uneven gasps as I clutched my belly. The contractions were stronger now, relentless, each one a brutal reminder that my baby was coming, whether I was ready or not. And Marcus was gone. He had left me. The moment replayed in my head like a cruel joke. The way he had unbuckled his seatbelt, stepped out, and closed the car door behind him without a second glance. No hesitation. No guilt. Just cold indifference as he abandoned me on the side of a dark, deserted road. My hands trembled as I reached for my phone. I fumbled with it, the pain making it nearly impossible to focus. My fingers barely managed to press the right contact. "Sarah. Come on, pick up," I muttered through clenched teeth. After what felt like an eternity, she answered. "Anna?" What's wrong? Her voice was sharp, alert. I'm in labor, I gasped. Marcus, he left me. I'm on the road near the hospital, but I can't. What? Her voice shot up in alarm. Oh my God. Stay there. I'm coming right now. I barely heard the rest of what she said. Another contraction tore through me, and I doubled over in pain. The world around me blurred, my body consumed by the overwhelming force of labor. I couldn't believe this was happening. I was alone, in the middle of nowhere, fighting through the most agonizing moment of my life. And the man who had promised to love me, to stand by me, had chosen a vacation over me and our unborn child. A race against time. Minutes crawled by like hours. The cold night air bit at my skin, but I barely noticed. My body was drenched in sweat, my dress sticking to me as my contractions came faster, closer together. Where was Sarah? I could barely keep my eyes open, my body so weak that even holding the phone felt impossible. Then, headlights. At first, I thought I was hallucinating. But as the vehicle slowed and the driver's door swung open, I knew it wasn't my imagination. Anna. Sarah. I nearly sobbed in relief as she rushed to my side, her eyes wide with fear as she took in my state. Oh my God, you're burning up, she said, pressing a hand to my forehead. We need to get you to the hospital. Now. She helped me into her car, buckling me in as fast as she could before peeling off toward the hospital. Marcus left you, she demanded, gripping the wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. That piece of... Her words were cut off as I let out another pained cry. We're almost there, okay, she said, her voice thick with worry. Just hang on. The hospital was only a few minutes away, but every second felt like an eternity. My body was fighting against me, my baby desperate to come into the world. I clenched my teeth, holding back the screams threatening to escape. Would I make it in time? The battle in the delivery room. The hospital doors burst open as Sarah screamed for help. Nurse. She's in labor, she needs a doctor right now. Within seconds, nurses and doctors swarmed me, placing me on a stretcher, asking me rapid-fire questions I could barely process. Where is your husband? One of them asked. He's not here, I whispered, my voice barely audible. Let's get her to a delivery room, now. Everything moved so fast after that. Nurses hooked me up to monitors, checked my vitals, rushed around me as I lay on the hospital bed, completely at their mercy. But my baby wasn't waiting. We need to push now, the doctor said. Anna, listen to me. You have to stay strong. I was exhausted, every ounce of energy drained from my body. But I had no choice. With every last bit of strength I had left, I pushed. Pain. Agony. A battle between life and exhaustion. Then. The sound of a baby's first cry filled the room. A sob burst from my throat as they placed my newborn against my chest. A healthy baby girl, the doctor announced with a small smile. Tears streamed down my face as I looked at my daughter for the first time. She was tiny, fragile, but so incredibly perfect. I had done it. Even though I had been abandoned, left alone in my most vulnerable moment, I had brought my child safely into this world. And Marcus wasn't here to witness it. A shocking turn of events. I thought that would be the end of the nightmare. That I would go home, rebuild my life, and never have to face Marcus again. But life had other plans. The next morning, as I lay in my hospital bed, cradling my newborn daughter, Sarah burst into the room, her eyes filled with rage. You are not going to believe this, she seethed. My stomach twisted. What? Marcus, she spat his name like it was poison. He's on vacation, posting pictures like nothing happened. Like he didn't just abandon you in the middle of labor. She shoved her phone toward me, and my heart nearly stopped. There he was. Smiling. Relaxing at a luxury resort with his parents, posing for pictures by the beach. His caption? Family first. Always. The words made my blood run cold. I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. He had left me. He had abandoned his daughter. And now he was out there, pretending to be the perfect son, the perfect man. Something inside me snapped. No. I wouldn't let him get away with this. I looked down at my daughter, her tiny fingers wrapped around mine. She deserved better. I deserved better. And Marcus was about to learn that he had made the biggest mistake of his life. The reckoning begins. The weight of my newborn daughter pressed against my chest, her tiny fingers curled around mine, as I stared at the phone screen in disbelief. The man who had abandoned me, left me in agony on the side of the road, was lounging in a luxury resort, posting about family first. A fire ignited inside me, burning away the exhaustion that had settled in my bones. I had been weak before. I had trusted him. I had believed in the love he claimed to have for me. But now? Now, I was a mother. And a mother does not let anyone walk away unscathed after betraying her and her child. I exhaled, my voice calm but laced with steel. We're going to make sure the world sees Marcus for who he really is. Sarah's lips curled into a dangerous smirk. I was hoping you'd say that. The first strike. By the time we left the hospital, I had a plan. I wasn't going to scream or beg Marcus to take responsibility. No. He had made his choice. Now, I would make mine. Step 1. Exposure. Sarah was a social media expert, and with a little digging, she found something interesting. Marcus wasn't just some wealthy businessman. He had carefully cultivated a public image as the perfect son, the loving partner, the man who had everything under control. And his family? They had connections. Connections to high society, investors, people who admired Marcus for being the ideal modern man. His father sat on the board of multiple companies. His mother ran an exclusive charity for empowered women. And Marcus? He was being considered for a prestigious business award, one that required nominees to have a reputation for integrity, responsibility, and, oh, the irony, family values. Sarah's fingers flew across her phone screen. One viral post, she murmured, and his whole facade crumbles. I hesitated for only a second. Was this revenge? Maybe. But more than that, it was justice. The world deserved to know the truth. And so, I drafted a post. 4 days ago, my husband left me on the side of the road while I was in labor, choosing a vacation over the birth of his daughter. While I fought through unimaginable pain, while I held our newborn child in my arms, he was sipping cocktails by the ocean, pretending to be a man who values family. Marcus, you may have abandoned us, but the world will not look at you the same way again. #family first, right? Sarah took a picture of me in my hospital bed, my daughter nestled against me, and we attached it to the post. Then, with a deep breath, I hit post. The internet erupts. At first, there was nothing. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Then, boom. My phone lit up with notifications. The post was everywhere. People were outraged. Influencers, journalists, even celebrities started commenting, resharing, adding their own furious takes. This is disgusting. Marcus should never be allowed to call himself a father. Women and children deserve better. Then came the headlines. Wealthy businessman Marcus O'Connor exposed for abandoning wife in labor. Family first. Business tycoon leaves pregnant wife on the road to vacation. And the best part? His award nomination? Revoked. His mother's charity? under heavy scrutiny for backing a man who treated women like disposable objects. His father? Furious at the PR disaster. And Marcus himself? Silent. Until he wasn't. The liar's defense. I had just finished nursing my daughter when my phone rang. Marcus. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. Sarah shot me a knowing look. Put it on speaker. I did. His voice, usually so smooth, was now tight with barely restrained anger. Anna. What the hell have you done? I almost laughed at the audacity. What I've done? You ruined me. My name, my reputation, do you know how hard I've worked for this? Oh, you mean the reputation you built on lies? I said coolly. You did this to yourself, Marcus. The moment you left me in the middle of the road, you made your choice. You're being dramatic, he snapped. I knew you'd be fine. I knew Sarah would come for you. You just what? I interrupted. Thought I'd forget? That I'd be so grateful for your scraps of attention that I wouldn't fight back. A long silence. Then. Let's be rational, he said, his voice dropping into that fake, persuasive tone I used to fall for. You don't want a war with me, Anna. A chill ran down my spine. But I wasn't the same woman I had been before. I glanced at my daughter, peacefully sleeping in my arms. No, Marcus, I said quietly. You don't want a war with me. Then I hung up. The final blow. After that call, Marcus tried damage control. He gave interviews, spun sob stories about miscommunication, tried to shift blame onto me. But it was too late. No one believed him. His sponsors pulled out. His business deals fell apart. His social circle shrunk overnight. And then, the ultimate humiliation. His father publicly disowned him. A statement was released. We do not condone or support Marcus's actions. As a family, we prioritize integrity and responsibility. We deeply regret the pain caused to Anna and her child and will take steps to ensure her and her daughter's well-being. Marcus had lost everything. And as for me? For the first time in a long time, I felt free. The road ahead. Days passed. Then weeks. My daughter grew stronger every day, her little fingers grasping mine as if she knew I was the only person she needed. I built a life without Marcus. And when he finally showed up at my door, looking broken and desperate, begging for a second chance, I smiled. And I shut the door in his face. Because he had already made his choice. And now? I was making mine. The strength of a mother. The moment I closed the door in Marcus's face, I felt something shift inside me. It wasn't just relief, it was power. The kind of power I never thought I had. For years, I had let Marcus dictate my life, my emotions, my worth. I had believed his words, fallen for his charm, and ignored the warning signs. But not anymore. Now, I had my daughter to protect. And she would never grow up thinking that love meant betrayal. Marcus pounded on the door, his voice muffled but desperate. Anna, please. Just talk to me. I stared at the door, my heart steady. He wasn't here because he regretted what he did. He was here because he had lost everything. His father's money, his mother's influence, his career. He thought he could come crawling back and I would take him in like nothing had happened. But I wasn't the same woman anymore. I walked away, leaving him standing outside. Sarah, who had been watching from the living room with her arms crossed, smirked. That was satisfying. I let out a breath and sat down, my daughter cradled in my arms. He'll come back, I murmured. He doesn't give up when he wants something. Sarah sat beside me. Let him try. You're not alone in this, Anna. You have people who actually care about you. I glanced down at my baby, her tiny fingers grasping my shirt as she slept. For the first time in a long time, I truly believed it. Marcus's last stand. Over the next few weeks, Marcus tried everything. First, he sent flowers. Dozens of bouquets arrived at my doorstep, each with a handwritten note. I made a mistake. Please, let's fix this. You and our daughter are all I have left. Give me a chance to make this right. I tossed every single note into the trash. Then, he switched tactics. He went on national television. I turned on the news one evening and nearly dropped my coffee. There he was, sitting in front of a sympathetic journalist, looking perfectly polished in his tailored suit, his expression one of remorse. I was under a lot of stress, he said, sighing deeply. I made a terrible decision. But I never stopped loving Anna or our daughter. I just want a chance to be in their lives. Sarah nearly threw her phone at the TV. Are you kidding me? This guy is actually trying to play the victim? I shook my head. He doesn't want us, he wants to rebuild his reputation. And I wasn't about to let him. The courtroom battle. A week after his pathetic TV stunt, a letter arrived. Marcus was suing me for joint custody. I stared at the paper in disbelief. Sarah read over my shoulder, her face turning red with fury. He has the nerve to leave you on the side of the road, disappear for months, and now he wants custody? I swallowed hard, my grip on the paper tightening. He doesn't want to be a father. He just wants control. And that was when I decided, this wasn't just about me anymore. I was going to fight. I hired the best lawyer I could find, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Evelyn Carter. This case won't be easy, Evelyn warned me during our first meeting. Courts still lean towards shared custody unless we can prove he's unfit. I took a deep breath. Then we prove it. And we did. Marcus tried to present himself as the doting father who had simply made one bad decision. But I had evidence. I had the hospital records. The testimony from nurses and doctors who had seen me arrive alone, in labor, abandoned. I had the viral posts, the articles, the public outrage. I had every text, every voicemail he had ignored while I had been pregnant. And most importantly, I had the truth. When it was my turn to speak, I looked directly at the judge, my voice unwavering. Marcus left me on the side of the road while I was in labor, I said. He didn't check if I made it to the hospital. He didn't ask if his daughter was born safely. He only came back when he lost everything. This isn't about love. This isn't about being a father. This is about him. The courtroom was silent. Marcus, who had smirked at me when the trial started, now looked pale. And when the verdict was announced, I could finally breathe. Sole custody granted. Marcus would have no legal rights to my daughter. A future without him. The final time I saw Marcus was in the courtroom parking lot. He stood by his car, defeated, his hands in his pockets. I walked past him, my daughter in my arms, my head held high. But just as I reached my car, he spoke. You think you've won, he said quietly. But one day, she'll ask about me. I turned to face him, meeting his cold blue eyes. And when that day comes, I said, I'll tell her the truth. His jaw clenched, but he had nothing left to say. I got into my car and drove away. The life we deserved. Months passed. Then a year. Marcus faded into obscurity, his name only whispered in business circles as a cautionary tale. As for me, I built a life. I found a job that let me work from home, so I could be with my daughter. I surrounded myself with people who truly loved and supported me. And most importantly, I found peace. One evening, as I watched my little girl take her first steps, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Joy. Pure, unshaken joy. Because we had survived. Because we had won. Because no matter what had happened before, our future was ours. And it was beautiful, rebuilding what was broken. The days following the custody battle felt surreal. For the first time in a long time, I could breathe without feeling like I was waiting for another disaster. Marcus was gone, not just from my life but from my daughter's future. But even with the victory, there were cracks in my heart that still needed healing. Marcus had shattered my trust, my faith in love, and the belief that I could rely on anyone but myself. And now, as I held my daughter in my arms, her innocent eyes gazing up at me with unwavering trust, I realized, I had to heal. Not just for me, but for her. She deserved a mother who wasn't afraid. A mother who believed in happiness again. And so, I started the long process of rebuilding what Marcus had broken. A life of our own. The first step was finding stability. Before my pregnancy, I had been working a demanding marketing job that drained the life out of me. Late hours, stressful deadlines, and constant anxiety over job security. I couldn't go back to that, not with a newborn depending on me. So, I did something I never thought I'd have the courage to do. I started my own business. At first, it was terrifying. I had no financial safety net, no idea if it would even succeed. But I poured every ounce of energy into it. I built a freelance marketing consultancy from the ground up, taking on small projects, networking with old colleagues, and slowly growing my client list. And after months of hard work, something incredible happened. It took off. Suddenly, I had more clients than I could handle. Companies started reaching out to me. I was setting my own hours, working from home while raising my daughter, and most importantly, I was doing it on my terms. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just surviving. I was thriving. The ghost of the past. Even though Marcus was gone, his shadow still lingered. I didn't tell many people about what had happened. I had no interest in being known as the woman who had been abandoned in labor. It wasn't a badge I wanted to wear. But there were moments when the memories crept in. Like when I saw happy families at the park, fathers lifting their kids onto their shoulders, their wives laughing beside them. Or when I heard couples at coffee shops talking about their futures, about marriage and children and love that seemed so effortless. Sometimes, I wondered, would I ever have that? Or had Marcus's betrayal ruined me for good? An unexpected visitor. One afternoon, while my daughter napped, Sarah stopped by. She had been my rock through everything, the sister I never had. She had seen me at my lowest, stood by me when I was at war with Marcus, and never once let me believe I was alone. But today, she had a strange look on her face. What? I asked, raising an eyebrow. She hesitated, then handed me her phone. I frowned as I looked at the screen. It was a news article. Former businessman Marcus O'Connor declares bankruptcy, final assets seized. I blinked. Wait, what? Sarah grinned. Yep. Our dear old Marcus has lost everything. His father cut him off permanently. He burned every bridge he had left. And now? He's broke. I read the article in disbelief. Marcus, the man who once owned the room whenever he walked into it, was now nothing. I should have felt vindicated. But instead, all I felt was, nothing. Marcus no longer had power over me. And that? That was the real victory. Moving forward. A year passed. Then another. My daughter grew from a fragile newborn into a wild, energetic toddler who filled every room with laughter. She had my eyes but Marcus's sharp features, a reminder of the past I had survived. She was my whole world. And slowly, piece by piece, I started opening myself up again. I didn't believe in love the way I once did. I wasn't the same naive girl who thought charm and good looks meant anything. But I did believe in happiness. I did believe that I deserved something more than just being a survivor. And when I met Daniel, well, I wasn't expecting that. A different kind of love. Daniel wasn't like Marcus. Where Marcus had been loud and commanding, Daniel was calm and steady. Where Marcus had made me feel like I needed to prove my worth, Daniel made me feel enough just by being myself. We met through work. He was a client, running a startup that needed marketing help. At first, it was strictly professional. But over time, the long work calls turned into conversations about life, about family, about dreams we had never voiced to anyone else. And one day, he met my daughter. It was just a casual coffee shop meeting. He had asked if I wanted to meet in person to discuss a project, and I hadn't been able to find a sitter. I had been nervous. Not because I thought he'd be cruel, but because I had learned that men like Marcus saw children as burdens. But Daniel? He knelt down, smiled at my little girl, and said, "Nice to meet you, princess." And she beamed. That was the moment I knew, this was different. Happiness, at last. It didn't happen overnight. I was careful. I took my time. I made sure my daughter would never be hurt by another man who didn't know how to love. But Daniel? He never wavered. He stayed. He listened. He loved. And for the first time in a long time, I let myself believe that I could have more. That I could have not just survival, but joy. That I could have not just strength, but love. And when, years later, I walked down the aisle toward the man who had never once made me feel less than, my daughter holding my hand as my flower girl, I knew. I had finally won. The end of one story, the beginning of another. Life didn't go the way I had planned. It had been painful. It had been messy. It had nearly broken me. But in the end, I was whole again. And I was happy that a love that stood the test of time. Years passed like pages turning in a book, each chapter bringing something new, something unexpected. The pain of the past never completely disappeared. It lingered like an old scar, a reminder of where I had been, how far I had come. But scars weren't something to be ashamed of. They were proof of survival. My daughter, Sophia, grew into a bright, lively child with endless curiosity and a heart full of laughter. She was my entire world, the light that had guided me through my darkest days. And then, there was Daniel. The man who had patiently stood by my side, never pushing, never demanding, just being there, proving with actions rather than words that love wasn't supposed to hurt. Building a new life. We had built something beautiful together. Daniel wasn't the kind of man who made grand, sweeping gestures. He didn't try to sweep me off my feet with words that meant nothing, like Marcus once had. Instead, he was steady. Reliable. He showed up for the little things, packing Sophia's lunch when I was running late, picking her up from school when I had meetings, making me tea in the evenings just because he knew it was my favorite. And the most amazing thing? Sophia adored him. She had never known Marcus. Never known what it was like to have a biological father in her life. And that was a blessing. She had only ever known love, the kind that was unconditional, unwavering, and real. One evening, after dinner, Sophia climbed onto Daniel's lap and looked up at him with those big, innocent eyes. "Are you my daddy now?" she asked. Daniel's breath hitched. I saw it in his face, the way his hands trembled slightly as he reached out and tucked a loose curl behind her ear. He glanced at me, almost as if asking for permission. But he didn't need it. "If you want me to be," he said softly. "Then yes. I would love to be." Sophia beamed, throwing her tiny arms around his neck. "Okay, Daddy." And just like that, our family was complete. A love worth fighting for. The past had taught me to be cautious, to guard my heart. I had learned the hard way that love could be a weapon, a tool of manipulation. But with Daniel, love was safe. So, when he proposed, quietly, simply, just the two of us sitting on the balcony one evening with the stars above us, I said yes. Not because I needed a ring, or a wedding, or a ceremony to prove that what we had was real. But because I wanted to say yes. Because I had finally found someone worth fighting for. And for the first time in a long, long time, I wasn't afraid of the future. The ghost of the past returns. I thought I had left Marcus in the past. I thought he was nothing but a distant memory, a mistake I had survived. But life had other plans. It happened on a random afternoon. I was picking Sophia up from school, standing by the gates while she chatted excitedly with her friends about a class project. Then, I felt it. That presence. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. A deep, unsettling feeling settled in my gut. And when I turned, Marcus was there. He was older now, his once pristine suit looking slightly disheveled, his sharp features softened by the weight of failure. But his eyes, the same cold, calculating blue eyes, hadn't changed. He had found me. A final confrontation. I didn't freeze. I didn't panic. I straightened my shoulders, my hand tightening around my car keys. If he thought I was the same woman he had abandoned on the side of the road all those years ago, he was mistaken. He approached slowly, cautiously, as if testing the waters. Anna. I stared at him, unmoving. Leave, I said, my voice steady. His lips curved into a forced smile. I just wanted to talk. There's nothing to talk about. His eyes flickered to the playground, where Sophia was laughing with her friends. Is that her? My blood ran cold. A part of me had known this day might come. That eventually, Marcus might try to slither back into our lives. But I had no intention of letting him. She's none of your concern, I said sharply. She's my daughter, he countered, his voice almost a whisper. No, I said, stepping closer, lowering my voice to a deadly calm. She's mine. You made sure of that the day you left us behind. For the first time, something flickered in his eyes. Guilt? Regret? I didn't know, and I didn't care. You have no place in her life, Marcus, I continued. She doesn't know you. She doesn't need you. And if you think I'm going to let you walk back in after everything, I let out a bitter laugh. You're more delusional than I thought. His jaw tightened. You can't keep her from me forever. I took a step forward, my voice ice cold. Yes, I can. And then, before he could say another word, I turned my back on him, just like he had once turned his back on me. I walked to my daughter, took her tiny hand in mine, and never looked back. Peace, at last. That was the last time I saw Marcus. Maybe he finally realized there was nothing left to take from me. Maybe he understood that he had no power over me anymore. Or maybe, for once in his life, he knew he had lost. Either way, it didn't matter. My life was mine now. And as I walked into my home that evening, Sophia giggling as Daniel lifted her into his arms, I knew. I had won. Not in the way Marcus had always defined victory. Not with power, or money, or control. But with love. With family. With a future that was bright, and full, and free of the past. And in the end, that was the only victory that ever truly mattered.